Honourable Casey Costello.
Madam Speaker, welcome to 2026. We started with sunshine and complained about the quality of the heat, and we were quickly stopped in our tracks by the forces of nature. The face of tragedy and the destruction by weather conditions, New Zealanders did what they do. They rallied and they came together. My mother and her close whānau in Whangaruru were luckily safe. Although isolated through washed out roads, they were protected by a community that rallied, that came together and checked on each other and made sure they were safe. Took a while to get out, but they did get out and everything was safe. I would like to acknowledge where it's due Huhana Linden for her advocacy for the region. She was out and about, standing at Helena Bay, talking to our whānau, and I would like to thank her for her efforts in bringing that community together. I fully acknowledge how lucky I am, and everyone I know and love was safe. And my heart goes out to those who are dealing with a very different reality. My apologies. I would like to acknowledge Minister Mitchell and the Prime Minister. I was appalled when it was referenced that they flew in and flew out, and that their efforts were in any way diminished. It is the hardest thing in the world to sit with someone who has lost people they love and be with a stranger in that tragic moment. And that is exactly what they did, and they did it when it was needed to be done, and I applaud them for their efforts. But now, Madam Speaker, I rise to speak on behalf of New Zealand First as part of the response to the Prime Minister's statement. Earlier in this debate, we had to endure the bravado on that side of the House that was quite breathtaking. We were followed up with the Emperor's New Clothes fable by the co-leader of the Green Party. You know the story, the foolish emperor who was sold a fancy cut of clothes and was forced to accept it because he was challenged that if he didn't see it, he was a fool. But that is exactly what that side of the House is asking us to accept. Look at their doomsday narrative, and that is followed by the assurance that they have the answer. They know what to do. You can't see it because we're obviously fools. Our leader announced it. It's the borrow and hope strategy. It is believe it because we say it so, and we'll carry on with this narrative. The yarn they spin is reliant on New Zealanders being foolish again. And I don't think they will, because they won't forget, as much as they want to paint the picture, the record rental price increases, the record inflation rates, the record interest rates that we all suffered and toiled under. And let's not forget the things that weren't delivered. You know, the houses, the increase in crime, all of the things that we're now told to forget because apparently on this side of the House, we've got it completely wrong. Well, no, we don't have it completely wrong. We don't believe farmers are the enemies. We don't want to penalise tradies for wanting to own a workhorse vehicle. We don't want to make retailers harder to do business and put more and more criteria on how they do business on them. We don't want them to live in fear because of ram raids. And astoundingly, the Green Party is still complaining about these businesses going out of business when they demonise the ability to make profit. They want them to be in business, but they're not allowed to make profit. And that is the problem. That is the confused narrative that they are asking us to accept. And they're still lecturing this side of the House, the people that have never owned a business, the people who have never toiled to attract and retain staff, the people who haven't had sleepless nights trying to work out whether they're going to make payroll. One more time, we're being lectured about the evil of profit. Landlords are depicted as the super wealthy, the robber barons, when they know most rental properties are owned by mum and dad investors. not this big business narrative they want us to believe. This is about the people that have toiled and worked, and as they've got older in life, they bought a second property and they rent it out to supplement for their retire. That is by the sweat of thy brow. That is the stuff about personal accountability and responsibility, and that is about the hard work that makes New Zealand great. And it is hard work that this government knows. We are the frontline workers, the farmers, the builders, the business owners, the military personnel that understand the importance of a hand up over handouts, the importance of education as the long-term investment in our future, and optimising our resources and innovation is essential to our prosperity. Madam Speaker, what a fantastic team I have the privilege to be part of, with this government and my New Zealand First colleagues returning to 2026 rearing to get on with delivery. Before talking about the year ahead and what we have done and are doing, I would like to first acknowledge those hard-working Kiwi battlers, the frontline services that kept on while this House was adjourned. Firstly, Madam Speaker, I would like to talk about, as Minister of Customs, the hard work of that team, who were tasked with facilitating trade, supporting travellers, and importantly, keeping us safe. On Boxing Day, 10 kilograms of meth and 8 kilograms of cocaine were intercepted at the Tauranga port. A few days later, 18 kilograms of meth was intercepted at Auckland Airport. Unfortunately, this is business as usual. This is what is happening at the time of peak travel numbers through our ports and airports. It is this continual effort at our borders that highlights how important it is that we tackle transnational and serious organised crime. And the strategy launch that I announced late last year, included the priorities and key functions to support enforcement agencies to make New Zealand the hardest place in the world for organised criminal groups and networks to do business and cause harm. The enormous amount of money that these criminal cartels siphon off our economy is eye-watering. It is essential that we come together and strengthen our response, and that is what this strategy does. New Zealand First has always been about practical solutions and getting the job done, and our work to combat organised crime is about bringing greater levels of cohesion and cooperation, improve information sharing, and explore options for a central agency to be responsible for organised crime. I am proud to be part of a government that is committed to law and order and to continue the legacy of New Zealand First's commitment to supporting our frontline workers by being tough on crime. But what we know that New Zealand does not sit in isolation, and we're reaching out to support our Pacific neighbours. While most of us were still enjoying time with our families, my leader, Winston Peters, was already back in the Pacific, engaging with our Pacific neighbours and strengthening our relationships. It is ironic that the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Chris Hipkins, was critical of how the world was viewing New Zealand, yet under his leadership, New Zealand had almost become invisible on the international stage. We have rebuilt our presence and our respect in the international stage. Our response to organised crime includes cross-agency Pacific maritime operations with Customs and New Zealand Defence, building on the activity of last year. We also have continuing success with the Pacific Detector TOG program, with a target of 30 operational units in the Pacific by the end of 2026. This includes...
Point of order, Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Look, I don't do this, and I don't like to interrupt someone speaking. There is, of course, a standing order that says we shouldn't read speeches in the House. I appreciate that from time to time people do, but if people are going to read speeches, they should at least be accurate, and that one is not.
I'm still waiting to know what the point of order is.
Well, Madam Speaker, there's a standing... Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's a standing order that says we shouldn't read speeches in this House.
Okay, so that's
what the member's done.
Okay, if you want the speakers to implement that rule across the House, that's going to impact an awful lot of people. Or are you just picking on one or two in
I'd love you to
particular?
rule that speeches should be more accurate if they're read.
I'm not going to interfere in the content of anyone's speech, Honourable Damien O'Connor, but as we get into our third year of this term, there will be a lot more emphasis on ad-lib speeches rather than read speeches. I can forewarn you of that. But I have been watching, and the Minister has added quite a bit of other information rather than just focused on what obviously is in front of her. So sorry to interrupt the Minister. Would you like to continue?
Madam Speaker, the concluding part of my speech is really around our Pacific response to organised crime, the importance of our relationships across the Pacific and the work that we will continue to be doing. As Minister of Customs, I'm incredibly proud of the work that we have done to build those positive relationships. We are continuing to work to support the Customs Administration and our Pacific neighbours to develop good legislation to enable them to strengthen their borders, and we will continue to drive a better legislation for New Zealand with border security legislation to help enforce our borders and provide the protection that New Zealanders need to live in this great country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.